Oh, hi everybody. I've just finished recording episode 98. This is now 99. Both are going to be released today. I hope you enjoyed the first and that you liked and shared and subscribed and commented. And if you haven't done that yet on this one, please do them as well for me, as it helps the algorithm push all the correct signals in the right places. It hits the spot, if you know what I mean. I'm Sean Butler. This is Bugsy Malone. This is now 99 of Tottenham Walks. And it is Thursday. It is still November the 24th. Right, on this particular video, guys, I'm going to bring it back to a little bit of news. Where's my sheet? We're going back to Italy today. Bring your passport. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of players that have really stood out to me in the World Cup over the last few days. You know, the World Cup obviously happening right now. It's quite a good audition process for some players who are either unknowns to get their chance in the big time, or even players that play for, you know, sort of second tier teams in the Europa Conference League or the Europa League to try and get maybe headhunted by a big boy. And I'm sure that all of the Tottenham scouts are out in Qatar running their eye over a few players, and there's a couple that have stood out to me that I was aware of anyway, but where I was looking forward to seeing them when they didn't disappoint. And I wanted to know what your thoughts were on these two guys specifically, and then also drop a comment if there's anybody that you've noticed that, you know, maybe could plug a hole for Tottenham that would be some interesting business for Tottenham to look at. For me, the two players I want to talk about, one of them played for Canada yesterday. He's a Bruges right-wing forward, or a forward. He plays alongside my man, who I love and did a video on before, called Andreas Skov Olsen, although he actually was really disappointing for Denmark in their opening game. But this guy didn't disappoint yesterday. In Tottenham Buchanan, the 23-year-old whippersnapper. In that first half of football last night, Belgium couldn't handle him. He was absolutely superb, sprinting across the pitch in every different direction. Canada had so many chances in that first half of football. I think 14 shots on goal or something. And it wasn't him that, you know, that screwed up or let anything down. I was really disappointed by Jonathan David. I was expecting him to be far more clinical, far more aggressive, and just have better execution with everything, really, his thought processes and his decision making. But he looked really poor and sloppy, and he ended up, you know, costing, I think, Canada a couple of goals that were created by the brilliant movement of this guy Buchanan. And look, according to Transfer Market, he's only valued at 12 million euros by Bruges. I'm sure that's probably a little bit out of date, but also if he continues to do well in the World Cup, double that to 25 million. But we're looking for somebody who can come in and give some rotation, give some competition for Dejan Kulusevski. And I think that Buchanan is a really interesting player. Now, he's playing for Bruges. Bruges are obviously in the Champions League. They're doing well. They're in the last 16 as well. So, you know, it would be a sideways step in terms of European football. But, you know, the Belgium League, Farmers League versus the Premier League, the amount of money, I think he is really interesting. And I know my man Brian Daigle, shout out to Brian, who obviously lives in Canada. He's been waxing lyrical about Buchanan for quite some time. So it was interesting to watch him last night. And I thought he did really well, really, really well. And Brian's got a good eye for talent, clearly. And I'd like to see him, how he progresses. He can also play on the left. I think he's one of those forwards that's kind of two-footed and can play on both the right and the left. And for me, you know, if we're looking to kind of reinvent our forward line, then if Brian Hill's going to go out on loan, Lucas Moura's probably not going to be around for Tottenham at the end of the season. He probably leave on a free transfer. You know, there's two spots available, and for me, one of them, at the moment at least, I'm not saying let's kind of go crazy and stick all our eggs in that basket, but I'd be very excited to see that kid come in as it stands. But just early thoughts, first thoughts on the guy. Really impressive, high energy, really quick, tricky, hard to read, and I think could really offer some competition for our man Decky. Obviously, maybe the other player of those two, if we're looking at Brian Hill leaving and Lucas Moura leaving, the other player that we've spoken about before would be Ruslan Malinovsky. That deal looks increasingly like it's going to materialise. There was some news out earlier this morning that the Bologna president, I think it was, said they were looking at Malinovsky, but they can't afford that kind of 15 million euro fee. Completely blown out of the water, so it's not for them. Their financials are in disarray, as are so many clubs in Europe. And consequently, it looks like Malinovsky's got his heart set on Tottenham, and the other clubs in the Premier League that are interested, I think there's Nottingham Forest and also West Ham. I don't think that, you know, he's going to want to leave Atalanta to go and play at that level. And so, you know, the draw of what you'd hope for would be, you know, consistent Champions League, but even if not, Europa League football should at least be enough to get him over the line. So those could be the two forwards that Tottenham could look to replace Brian Hill and Lucas Moura with, and that to me would be interesting, exciting. If you have Sonny, Malinovsky, Richarlison, Kane, Decky, and Buchanan, that's quite a mouth-watering front six, and one that I would be very much on board with. Speaking of Malinovsky, Atalanta player, if he does come in, obviously he's going to have the benefit of rekindling his old connection with Christian Romero. But there's another player from Atalanta that I watched yesterday, and he's someone that I thought was brilliant for the Denmark team, and that is Joaquin Melee, the left wing back and also right wing back. He played left back for Denmark, but the guy's two-footed. He's actually right-footed primarily. For Atalanta, he can play on the right or the left, and for Denmark, he can do the same. But Denmark, I think primarily he plays on the left. I thought his performance, I think he did get the man of the match performance for Denmark. I thought it was absolutely superb, and it was a player that I was looking out for to see whether or not would he be the right person to come in. And look, you know, Conte does seem to like to use the inversion of wing-backs. There's been plenty of scenarios this season where we've seen Sessegnon spend minutes on the right, Perisic spend minutes on the right and the left, obviously. Same with Sessegnon. Last season, we saw Doherty playing on the left and playing on the right. He likes to have, as an option, the ability for the wing-backs to invert and to cut inside rather than going deeper. Whether that's through choice or through, like, need, I'm not so sure. But the fact that Melee can play competently and confidently on the left and on the right, for me, is interesting. He again is only valued at about £12 million or 12 million euros currently, but his contract I think runs out in 2025. So if you wanted to buy him from Atalanta, then I think you'd have to, you know, double that money as well. But given that we have Destiny Udogie coming in the summer to take over the left wing back spot, and knowing that, you know, Perisic is going to be around for a long time, I'm not entirely sure this one would happen. It's not something that we've been particularly linked with, or in fact linked with at all. It's something that the fans, the channels, I remember Kuva and I were talking about Melee last summer in the window on my channel, on the live streams. He thought pretty highly of him then. And look, he didn't disappoint yesterday at all. I thought he was fantastic. So I'd love to know your thoughts, guys, on Melee, whether you think he's a player that is adaptable to both sides as much as I do. Do you think that that Conte would use him on the left and on the right? Do you think we could go for him in the summer? Let me know what your thoughts are. Bugs, go and let me know what your thoughts are on that, and whether or not he is the player. I've seen, you know, Denzel Dumfries also had a fairly decent game for Holland. on or the Netherlands, I should say these days, in their game. I still don't think Denzel Dumfries is the right player for Tottenham. I've got lots of friends who are incredible devotees to the Inter Milan team. They watch and talk about Inter Milan as much as I talk about Tottenham, and they continue to remind me that, in their opinion, Denzel Dumfries is no better than, in fact, worse than Emerson Royale. So, I don't know. I tend to lend my ear and lean towards the way that they think, because they're very rarely wrong, in my opinion. So Denzel Dumfries did put in a really good performance. He's one to keep an eye on, though. There might be something happening there. But also, like I say, I think that Maley one could be interesting as well. The fact that he can play on both sides, the fact that Conte likes players to be able to invert on the wings, and the fact that he put in a man of the match performance for Denmark in an otherwise boring game. To me, all positive things. I'll leave it there, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'll be back tomorrow for episode 100. Like, share, and subscribe. And as always, guys, bye-bye.